I tripled my salary as a construction project engineer within the first 5 years of my career. This might sound like a crazy thing to have done, but within my peers, I'm the norm, not the exception. The construction industry has an insane amount of opportunity, and if you're intentional and strategic, you can quite easily get ahead. So in this video, I'm going to go through 5 simple tips you can use to get ahead in your construction management careers. Nothing I'm going to say is particularly revolutionary, but in my experience, a lot of people don't do these very basic things. This is the exact video I wish I'd had 10 years ago when I started my career in the industry. Tip number 1 is to have a plan and then to follow it. When I started my career 10 years ago, I've always wanted to work in renewables. It was a booming industry. There was a lot of opportunity. It felt like an opportunity to do something meaningful with my career, work on projects that made the world a better place. However, when I got my first job outside of university, I was working on road construction. I then went on to work on rail projects, and it ended up being almost 5 years before I finally moved into the renewable sector. And since I made this move is where I've seen the most growth in my career, because the market's booming, but also I'm working on projects I'm passionate about, I think they're interesting. If I'd followed my original plan, I would have progressed much faster in my career. Now, as you go through your career, sure, there'll be new things that come up that give you reason to change your plan, but you should always have a plan and you should always, to the best of your ability, be trying to follow it. Now, tip number 2 is to choose the right market. There's a famous quote by the billionaire investor Warren Buffett, and it goes like this: when a management team with a reputation for brilliance tackles a business with a reputation for poor fundamentals, it is the reputation of the business that remains intact. While this advice is about investing, it directly relates to your career progression in the construction industry. If there's no investment within an industry, there's no projects and no jobs. If you work in a city or an area of the country where there's no money being put into commercial construction and you work in commercial construction, then there's going to be no jobs in commercial construction regardless of how good you are at your job. On the other hand, if your experience is in data centers and you work in an area of the country where they're building a lot of data centers, it will be almost impossible for you not to get a high-paying job. So the fundamental bit of advice here is you need to choose a market that's growing. You need to choose a market where there's going to be a lot of investment and learn the basics and apply your skills within that market. Tip number 3 is to learn to prioritize. This simple tactic will drastically improve your job performance. And in my experience, it's something that 90% of people fundamentally don't understand. The ones who do understand what's important and what to focus on are the ones that consistently perform better in their jobs. Nothing about construction management is particularly complicated or challenging. Writing an inspection test plan, preparing a schedule, putting together a budget. These are all relatively straightforward and simple things to do. And if you had 10 hours, you could probably write the perfect inspection and test plan. The true challenge with construction management is when at the same time you need to write that perfect ITP, you have 20 other things you need to do. Your phone's going off, you're busy, there's all these competing objectives. The true challenge of construction management is prioritizing and finding the important tasks to work on. From your massive to-do list, what is the most important thing you need to be doing? What is the task that has the biggest impact on the project objectives? Understanding that question and being able to answer it effectively is the essence of time management and prioritization. And if you want to get ahead in construction management, you fundamentally need to know how to do this. So tip Number 4 is to care about the outcomes. I've worked on so many projects where there is this toxic culture. Everybody hates being there. Nobody wants to work. People are annoyed at management and nobody cares about what is actually happening, whether we're overspending the budget or we're getting delayed. There's this toxic culture that forms on a lot of construction projects, and it is absolutely critical that you avoid becoming part of this. To a degree, I understand it. Construction management can suck. It's stressful, it's overwhelming. You'll have a massive concrete pour scheduled for the next day, and that afternoon, a batch plant will call up and tell you that they need to cancel your concrete order because their equipment has broken down. In that situation, what do? Do you just accept it? You've got a pretty good excuse for why you can cancel the pour. You've got somebody else to blame. The best construction managers won't accept that. They'll go and call 20 other batch plants till they find somebody who can provide them the materials they need so they don't need to cancel the pour. To be a successful construction project manager, you need to care about the outcomes and you need to care about them enough that you're willing to do the extra step to make sure your projects are a success. Tip number 5 is to focus on building skills. This is a framework that's really helped me in my career because when you start out in the industry, everybody is going to know more than you. Everybody's going to have a lot more experience. You'll be working with supervisors who spent 25 years just working on earthworks. You'll be working with design engineers who spent the same amount of time just working on electrical designs. Almost everyone you deal with will be an expert in their specific domain and they'll know a lot more than you do. You'll be fresh out of university, barely able to read a drawing and barely knowing the difference between a crane and an excavator. Don't get overwhelmed. The quicker you realize that what you don't know is simply a set of skills, the quicker you can set a plan and a path to start learning and mastering them. Of these skills, the most important one you're going to need to learn are project management skills. So if you want to learn how to effectively master and learn project management, then watch this video next.